Hello, and welcome to my side of the laundry room. Tonight's episode will be Sentimental Nostalgia, where we'll talk about some of the
stuff that made us us.
Yeah, and the topic of it is the live-action Disney movies.
Which I think has to go back to the infancy of VHS.
Yes.
When we were kids, we got that infancy. We were the first generation to really have movies at home.
Yes.
And in order for our parents to shut us the hell up for 2 hours or an hour and a half, they always brought home the old Disney clamshell.
Yes, and the thing is about the Disney clamshell, white, picture of the movie, but Disney. And
you might have got a Mickey or some shit up in the corner or something like that.
But that was the name alone that parents could trust in this new world of VCRs.
Or so they thought. Because some of these were a little sketchy. So, you know, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk because everybody pontificates about the Disney animation. And really there was a time where you could have argued that the Disney live action films were better than the animated films.
Yes.
You know, in their long history. This is a long history, and everything that has that long history has an ebb and a flow.
Yes.
And you know.
During the time when Disney started doing a lot of these live-action things, they were a studio.
Yes. 100%. 100%.
I mean, their name went on a lot of things.
A lot of things.
We're talking
that now no longer have their name on it.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Well, which we've talked about, right?
Yes, we've talked about. Dragon
Slayer comes to mind.
One of the bigger ones. But we're talking about 2 to 3 live-action movies a year for about 2 decades.
Consistently.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 3, 4, 5 a year. Animated movies were still at one every
a year.
3 years.
Well, yes, eventually, yes. Well, you had multiple animation studios working at that point. But prior to that, yes, you were getting one every 2 years, maybe. You know what I mean?
But to keep things fresh, just grab a Disney live action.
That's true.
And that's how it was.
That's true.
Was some of the movies I'll talk about, my parents had a connection with. So that was a double why they would bring that
Correct.
home.
Correct. And I think some of that also, Disney was quick to jump on the coattails of other films.
Yes.
So, you know, if Star Wars was big, then you got Black Hole.
Yes.
You know, that type of thing. And in order to, yet again, shut us up, which is about the best way to really, you know, you couldn't always get Star Wars.
No.
So Mom would bring home, or Dad would bring home Black Hole. Or
Tron.
Or Tron, yeah. I forgot. Oh, yeah, Tron.
As far as the newer releases in the 80s that Disney did. But we're talking...
You're talking 60s, 70s, 50s. Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean,
and these were good movies, too, because production quality was always high with a Disney film. You always had...
things were made more epic back then.
Yes, they were.
Scale and scope. The movie that pops into my mind that meant a lot to me as a kid, I still watch it today, Swiss Family Robinson.
Nice. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Was made with a grandeur on location. I mean...
Which Disney was not above.
No.
And that was almost unheard of back in the day, was because Disney would literally make most of their films on location. Yeah, that they could. A
majority of movies at that time, I mean, like the Universal backlot, that was a real thing. I mean, I'm sure TV shows will shoot on them. I mean, like, Vancouver is the Hollywood of the North. And they have... sets and things built into place in studios. So it is, but it seemed more commonplace back then.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, 100%. So your Swiss Family, for me, it had to be, don't laugh, but it was Blackbeard's Ghost.
Oh, great movie.
And it really, I couldn't honestly tell you how many times I've probably seen that. And to this, and the funny thing is recently it was a rediscovery.
Okay.
Because it had been so many years since I seen it. So I decided one night on Amazon or whatever it was, I wonder if it's there. Just wonder if it's there, you know? And oh my God, it is. And it was only like $5 to rent it or $4 to rent it. And you get it for 24 hours. And And it just really filled like a little hole that I had, if that makes any sense. But it's a great movie. It's a great premise and entertaining. Because you have a guy who's trying to keep his wits about him, and he's the only one who sees the ghost of Blackbeard. And that's kind of the running...
Was it Peter Ustinov?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so you have a flamboyant, great actor.
Great actor, and he really sold it. And he was the Johnny Depp before Johnny Depp. So when you watch that film, you know what I mean? There's a lot of...
But the one thing Disney had, like Peter Ustinov or...
young Kurt Russell.
Oh, Fred McMurray.
Which was every child's dad.
Yes.
He filled that role perfectly.
Yes.
He really did.
Like another movie at that time that meant a lot was Follow Me, Boys. And that movie even has a very young Kurt Russell at the end of it. But it's about the Boy Scouts and stuff, which I was into, in at that time. Great movie.
That is one also that I probably haven't seen for in years.
99% of these movies I have not seen recently.
So we wax constantly about comic book films and what filled the niche for us when we didn't have comic films. And I'm going to throw Condor Man out there.
Oh, hell yeah.
That was he had a supercar, he had wings, he had a jetpack, had a costume. This was a comic movie.
Yes.
Without it being a comic movie.
Right, and he was the man thrust into the situation.
Correct.
Bumbled his way through it. Which, I guess, if you want to think, a kid sees themselves in that situation. But...
And also, if you think of the snapshot in time, while this is being shown in theaters for the 30 seconds that it was there, we got to go home and watch William Catton, Greatest American Hero, which was a very similar premise. You know what I mean? So it was very easy for us kids at that age to adopt, Condor Man. You know what I mean? And
now it's universally panned, which is sad.
That is sad.
You can only get it on DVD through
Disney, right?
Disney Treasury Club or whatever it's called.
Which is a shame, because it's an enjoyable film.
Yes. And it's a snapshot into what, like you said, we had to turn to get a comic book feel. Even though it's more of a spy caper. But
still, it was a superhero for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. As far as like the superheroes go, 2 movies, which were series as well, Zorro and Davy Crockett, who were folk heroes.
And the Davy Crockett series
with Buddy Epson.
Buddy Epson were fantastic.
Yes.
Yet again, shot on location on the Mississippi River with the Pirates of the Mississippi or whatever it was. And scale, scope. And the story of course of Davy Crockett is he dies at the Alamo. And you want to talk about one of the most coolest endings, if there is such a thing for this. The camera just goes black where he's in the Alamo and he's just fighting Santa Anna's army, and that's the end of it. You don't see him, you know what I mean? You don't see him get killed. And you didn't, as a kid, you just knew he was going down swinging. You didn't get that, you know what I mean? You didn't get that boding. Would Davy die? No. You know what I mean? Those were, all of them were. They were fantastic.
And I think what also added fuel to like those were the Disney Channel in its infancy was still showing Mickey Mouse Club from the 50s, 60s.
With Annette Funicello and
and Cubby and all them. So they had those shorts intact because they were just re-showing Mickey Mouse Club. So you would get those, and I think that with Toby Hooper or whatever, the kid that goes with the circus. And, so...
But you said Zorro.
Yes. And
which has one of the most bombastic openings.
Yes.
The title theme is one of those things where if you've ever heard it, you'll never forget it. You know what I mean? They were great show. Great show.
And like the thing about that, it had a cast of characters that you saw from the series on Disney Channel. Within all the movies, they all had the same actors. It was like... but it was like a universe unto itself. Where when you saw a character come on screen that you're familiar with, you know what hijinks are in order. It was
between the live action movies that we got, like you said, 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we also had The Wonderful World of Disney.
Yes.
Which a lot of these things were first run on those.
Yes.
And it later became home video fodder for us.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Davy Crockett and Zorro both were those.
Yes.
You know, they were definitely Wonderful World of Disney weekly shows, and they ended up being home video for us. You know what I mean? And they were nice pull. They were great, man. They really were. They were fantastic.
I mean,
some of my favorites, honestly. It really is.
It's really easy to, I guess, if you're in my generation, our generation. Sorry, our
That's
generation.
Right.
That to be a Disney fan. You know,
I was probably more of a live-action Disney fan than I was an animated Disney fan.
As of right now, us, you know, Disney File or whatever they're called.
Yes.
You know, but it's kind of, it's had its ebbs and flows, but I mean, ours is very concrete. Still to this day, it's just like Disney. Can do no wrong.
Mm-hmm. I still say that.
Yeah. But I think with the, I mean, and we'll get right back into more movies, but with the purchase of Marvel and the purchase of Star Wars, people, they're just a big conglomerate. They'll just suck up anything. You know what? That might be true. They're in it to make fucking money.
Well, because if they don't make money, we don't get quality product.
And we've gotten quality product.
Even the stuff that gets panned in recent times, right? Tomorrowland is a solid film.
That's a great movie.
It's a great movie. I don't understand why it didn't do as well as it did. I'll tell you another one. Totally 100%. Got panned because I honestly don't think anybody knew what the hell it was. John Carter.
Yes.
That is one of the all-inspiring, all-encompassing scope and visual
swashbuckling.
Yes.
I mean, that's one thing that we miss in movies.
We don't get.
That Johnny Depp nailed, and he keeps trying to accomplish, but the swashbuckling hero.
Oh, yeah, pirates.
Yeah.
You know?
I have my problems, but that's like what we talked about Matrix before, where you have a great opening act, and the next ones aren't really that great.
As good. Yeah. They're not, they weren't.
And they were a disappointment because of the pedestal the first one was placed on.
Yeah, well, you still got to play around in that world for a little bit,
I mean,
you know?
Davy Jones, I love him, but... And then, hey, this is still Disney live action, so it counts to the conversation. Yeah, the second movie. Fear the fucking Kraken. Kraken. First 5 minutes of the third movie, or I had to lay the Kraken down.
What the fuck?
That's like such a... What, like those movies where it's like Gift of the Magi shit or whatever, where it's like you work toward the end, I got it. Hey, I'm the bad guy, give it to me. Okay. It's like, why the fuck did we just go on this journey for 2 hours for nothing?
Sometimes I think the success of the first film takes everyone, which is 100% what Pirates of the Caribbean 1 was. And I really think they scramble for concept on the second and third film.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Or if that's what their planned trilogy is going to be or what have you. But I think that's some of the problem with Pirates more so than anything else. I think it was a good idea. Nobody thought it would ever do what it did.
Right.
And then we were scrambling to make it up. But returning back to the heyday, well, what I consider the heyday. I mean, I'm sure people would argue with us and whatever else, but I'll go, it's campy, it's cheesy, but I love it, and I will watch it every time I see it, which is never. The Apple Dumpling Game.
I never liked that one,
but I'm saying it's one of those things where I can remember 5, 6 years old, whatever it was, Mom coming home, and it's like, it's got the guy from Andy Griffith Show, because we're watching that in syndication.
It's got the guy from the Carol Burnett Show,
which we're watching in syndication, and it's like, sweet. What you know what I mean? What more do you want? I'm going to sit here and laugh. Yeah. You know, I haven't seen it in years. You know, but I wouldn't mind watching.
I
it
might
again.
pop that in and like it now, but as a kid, I didn't like it.
Fair enough.
I like the sequel where
Rides Again.
What's his name? Eli or whatever had a twin brother that was. I like that one better. And then I would get it roped into Hot Lead and Cold Feet, which was also Don Knotts.
Yeah.
And Tim Conway, I
Western.
think.
I'm almost positive, yeah.
Comedy Western.
Which were entertaining.
I think that was actually made by Disney too, though.
In my house, there was my father whose deepest mental capacity with a film is a Western.
Okay.
Okay? So how do you shut up both men for an hour and a half
Understood.
Get some comedy that makes my son happy.
Yeah.
In a Western setting, makes my husband happy, and I can go make dinner or get an hour of peace. God bless my mother. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
You know what I mean. So we all have those.
Right.
You know.
Now, one movie that I always had on the top of my mind of, wow, that was a big movie for me, was Island at the Top of the World.
Yeah.
But then I simply watched the trailer recently, and just the trailer alone, I'm like, ew. But it was one of my first exposures to Mako, so that's
Yeah, there you
cool.
go. Yep. I'll tell you one recently that I discovered completely by accident again, which we kind of talked about, was Black Hole.
Yeah.
I was actually being ran on one of the movie channels or flicks or something, whatever it is. And I'm like, you know, whatever, flying through the channels, and I'm like, can't be Black Hole, you know, and it's got to be some remake sci-fi original piece of crap, whatever. So I click on, I was like, oh my God, there's Maximilian, there's Ernest Borgnine, there's, you know what I mean? It was
Anthony
like,
Perkins.
and there's Anthony Perkins, you know what I mean? And it was like, and I watched the 55 minutes left of the film. I mean, I did not catch the beginning of it.
That is one of those rare Disney movies where they just sold the rights to fucking anybody. It's in syndication where, not sold the rights, but the syndication rights.
Oh, I gotcha.
A lot of stuff they keep to the vest. No, this is ours. But that's one, like, if you want to fucking show
somebody's got to show this,
on
right?
Sci-Fi Channel, on Channel Me or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Because it seems like it's out there a lot. And there's a few like that. Like, even some of their animated movies that didn't do good, like Home on the Range, that one with Roseanne Barr about the cows. That's another one of those where if you're cycling through a cheap or a free movie service online,
I
it's
gotcha.
like, why the fuck is it over here on Crackle? You know, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
You
Gotcha.
know.
Like Victory.
Yeah.
I gotcha. But I mean, that's that. But see, that was a wheelhouse, though.
Yes.
You know what I mean? With Black Hole, that was something I know I probably watched 40 times. You know what I mean? And you said it earlier, too. Tron.
Yes.
You know, that is one that nobody watched.
And
you know what I mean?
I'm in the minority where I loved the sequel and I wanted more, and it kind of fizzled out from that. I thought that was a great movie that touched enough on the original. As a fan of the original, you're like, wow, and enough of the new shit, you know, to get new people on board. I thought it was handled very well, but unfortunately it didn't go anywhere.
Well, it didn't meet the mythical expectation that Disney had for it. It made money. It did well. It just didn't do as well as they had hoped.
Right.
Which I think is kind of a crappy excuse.
It is.
You know, it wasn't like John Carter, which cost him like $175 million and it made like 30 in the, you know, theaters.
That's like I've talked about with Disney Infinity, to why it got canceled unceremoniously. Because when you're Disney and you have everything in the green, that one thing in the red,
Yep.
just fucking
Bye.
glows.
See ya.
Yeah.
Yep.
Out of here.
Which is a shame because Disney was more apt 20 short years ago, 25 short years ago, to give something a shot.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
When they were struggling.
Well, yeah, Yeah. Which, you know, if they hadn't, we wouldn't have got Nightmare Before Christmas, if you think about it. You know what I mean? If they hadn't, you know, we wouldn't have got 2 Rescuer films.
And
what's
what's really weird about, like, Nightmare Before Christmas, the first pressings of it, because I have it on tape and the first DVD, don't say fucking Disney anywhere on it.
No. You're right about that.
One bit.
You're right about that. Well, let's talk about one of your favorite live-action Disney films that no one ever, I mean, people barely even realize.
Dragon Slayer?
Not just no, you're the one you brought to my attention. I'm like, no way, this is a Disney film.
I don't know what.
Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Something Wicked This Way Comes, yeah.
That was an eye-opening experience for me. That was Disney's like foray into a horror film to a certain extent.
I mean, before that they had Watcher in the Woods, which is so fucked up. And if you've seen the original cut of the movie, it's so much cooler because it deals with aliens and different dimension and shit. The version we got was so watered down.
Just cut.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, here's a bright light when in The original cut, it's actual aliens.
Okay. Was that a special edition DVD?
It's you're lucky to find it online. Someone
okay. I got you. Japanese Laserdisc?
Yeah, one of those mythic things. But yeah, Something Wicked This Way Comes. I mean, that was... After that movie, Jonathan Pryce became a household name in my house.
Okay.
And everything that man has done...
Ever since has been... Okay.
To me, anyway.
I
mean, even you get to the end of the Whoopi Goldberg movie, Jumping Jack Flash, and he's Jack. Holy shit, yeah, Jonathan Pryce, woo, woo, you know.
Wow.
How many people would be jumping to joy for that, you know? But anyway.
I can relate. We had the same thing with, I'm not being funny, Viggo Mortensen. Okay? He played Satan in The Prophecy.
Right.
My wife was, like, captivated by him. So we go see Crimson Tide, and she's like, oh my God, that's Satan. She doesn't even know his name.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I understand what you're right. I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big movie growing up for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I had never heard of it. I freely admit it. I had never heard of it, and you turned me on to it. And you're like, hey, this is an old... and it took you a long time to track down a copy. I remember that was kind of like one of your hunts. You know what I mean? It was... you know, and mutually, Scarecrow Romney Marsh.
Oh, yeah. That's honestly something I haven't seen in 30 plus years. I don't even know if it's out.
It is.
I think it's in one of the metal box collections.
Which is like $400 frickin' dollars because everybody wants it because Scarecrow Romney Marsh, which is essentially a Revolutionary War Batman.
Yeah.
And yet again,
Yeah, he was a doctor during the day, and he was a crime fighter
at night.
At night.
On a horse.
Yeah, with a cool scarecrow mask.
Incredible. Yeah, just neat story. And that was another one. That was a Magical World of Disney.
Yes.
That ended up getting collected later, and you know, it's got its little niche following over here, and or one of the niches. But Disney, the interesting thing about that is Disney knew they had something there because, like in 80 or 81. They actually did the old vinyl Halloween costumes.
Yes.
As Scarecrow of Romney Marsh. So, I mean, they knew there was a fan base. You know what I mean? And it was something that only went like 3 or 4 single little episodes. It wasn't something like Davy Crockett or Zorro or some of the other things we've talked about tonight.
Which they all started that way.
They did. They did.
But, I mean, there were... And these were movies from my parents' heyday that... they indoctrinated me on, but like the Misadventures of Merlin Jones, which then led into The Monkey's Uncle. You know, it was Tommy Jones and Annette Funicello, who he was the teen player in the Disney universe.
He was before Jack Burton.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell came later.
Because when you look at the timeline and you look at their movies, it's like boom, 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 boom. 6 movies in a row with the exact same cast. Playing exact same or different characters. And as a kid, that like created this universe. You know, Fred McMurray and what's his name?
And to an extent, that was a formula they stick with to this day. So if they have a failed sitcom or something that didn't catch on the Disney Channel, they'll take a lot of those characters, recast them, recycle them, and spit them back out in another format. You know what I mean? Which, hey, look.
There was a time when you appeared in any Disney movie, you were a made man. I remember, like...
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, to a degree. But as simple as I remember when that movie, Oliver and Company came out. It was Cheech Marin's first...
Disney film,
voice gig, Disney gig, and it's like my parents are like, "Oh, he's a made man now," and I mean, honestly,
was that the one Billy Joel did a song for? Yeah,
he played
a dog or whatever it was. Yeah,
and Oliver was a cat.
I'm just trying to picture it all in my.
But that was the mythos from my parents' generation that I even grew up thinking about. You know, like even to this day. I mean, I have 101 thoughts about voice actors, but when
that
someone
aren't named
pops
Mark
up,
Hamill,
right? No, not in a bad way.
I know.
But I don't know a good example. Okay, David Spade. I mean, he was in a Disney movie. That means something to me, even though David Spade is David Spade.
He was Joe Dirt.
Yeah, I mean, I like him for what he is, but, you know, I'm just saying, oh, wow, he was in a Disney movie. Or...
It's not his fault Chris Farley died. I mean, I'm not being funny. It just seemed like they couldn't separate themselves long enough to, you know.
Right.
So, I have to ask the question because we've kind of hit on some of the high points from that Disney era. And one of the ones that always seemed to have some mythos with it or some additional story or whatever it was, Witch Mountain. Fan? Not a fan.
Not a fan.
Me either.
Not a fan.
Me either.
I mean, but
not even Escape from Witch Mountain. You know what I mean?
I remember a time when I needed Freaky Friday. Every fucking Friday, I needed it for
Herbie.
a good couple months.
Herbie. I was a Herbie.
Not a Herbie fan.
Well, I understand, but I'm saying I was a Herbie. I had... I thought they were hysterical because of Buddy Hackett.
Oh yeah, Buddy.
You know what I mean? That was, but I didn't know who Buddy Hackett was. It was just
Yeah, and that's a good example of these actors that he was a stand-up comedian,
a dirty one,
with his stammering humor.
Uh-huh.
But he took on a whole new world, a whole new life within the Disney
mythos.
Yep. And from there, he's done other popular voice acting gigs, and and it's like Don Rickles is a good example. Not necessarily dirty, but he had a reputation for...
He could be dirty.
He could be dirty, but his aggressiveness, and it played well within the Toy Story movies.
It did, and you also have to, if you're going to do that, you got to go Gilbert Gottfried.
Yes.
Because Gilbert's filthy.
He is.
And I think he was one of the funniest comics, in modern times, personally. But his portrayal of Zazu in... not Zazu. Aladdin.
I can't think of his name either.
He was a parrot.
Yeah.
So, but he was funny, because he wasn't... He was not the straight man. Jafar was the straight man, too. Right.
Anyway, we're getting off the path of live-action movies.
But, I was not a Witch Mountain or Return of Witch Mountain fan at all. Just wasn't, I was a Shaggy Dog guy.
Yeah,
the original one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I honestly, I would probably kind of pigeonhole myself as just a Fred McMurray fan.
Oh, yeah.
So if it was Fred, I would watch it. There's another one that's a deep cut. Big fan of it. Kind of sparked a little bit, because, I'm a history nut. And there's a Johnny Tremaine.
Oh, yeah.
And it is it's a great movie. It's just a great movie. It was a Disney live action. Probably another Wonderful World of Disney airing. But yet again, we didn't get that. We got the,
we got the taped version.
We got the taped version. But yeah, that was another great film. And, there are so many great movies that Disney did from that 50s to that 80s.
Yeah.
Because Eisner took over and started the Wonderful World of Disney again.
Yes, and we got a lot of original movies.
We did.
Unfortunately, there's some of them you don't see anymore. The Mr. Boogedy films. I remember that. They were good.
There was a couple sci-fis, and right now as we talk, I can't remember what they were called.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, back in that day, it's one and done.
Yeah, well, that was...
Maybe over the summer, they would repeat them, but other than that...
You know what was great about the Eisner eras of Wonderful World of Disney? Is in the summer, they would rerun some of the classics.
Yes.
So you'd get the Apple Dumpling Gang. You'd get maybe Tron. Maybe, you know what I mean? Whatever it was. They would run some of those old films. And that was kind of a great thing, too.
And we also got the Ewok movies through Wonderful World of Disney.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, they were on Sunday night. And
it came on at 7 o'clock. And it went off at 9.
Yes.
Because you got an hour and a half to 2 hours of programming. And sometimes you got two specific things.
Yes.
One would be 7 to 8, and then 8 to 9 would be something else. And I think that's where the first time I saw Mickey's Christmas Carol was on the Wonderful World of...
I remember it was in theaters. Hell, I remember Hardee's had the awesome stuffed animals.
Yes.
But I can't... I remember it being in theaters, but I think it was coupled
That was OG else. Hardee's, not Hardee's of today.
Yeah,
that's old school.
No thick burger.
No thick burger.
No, just roast beef was their game, and fried chicken. But, yeah, and they had some of the best Happy Meals, or outright purchases.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But,
yeah, whatever.
Discussion for another time. But, yeah, I remember it being in theaters, but it's only 20 minutes long. It had to be with
It opened up for something else, yeah.
But I can't recall what it would have been.
But I remember the first time I remember seeing it was a Wonderful World of Disney.
Same here.
You know what I mean?
And they used to have wonderful packages. Like, the thing that made me who I am today in a nutshell was their Halloween. Their Disney Spirit of Halloween or whatever it was.
Yes.
Called. And I mean, that's what made me a Donald fan.
Which you always got right there around Halloween or that weekend, that Sunday, whatever it was. And you always got the Scarecrow, Ichabod Crane, little 20, 25 minute, you know.
You got the Sleepy Hollow, and then you got a bunch of cartoons from every era of Disney. From the black and white silly symphonies, skeletons dancing, up into like the Donald Trick or Treat short, which is my favorite.
Or the Huey, Dewey, and Louie with Donald, Witch Hazel. Yep. Yeah.
And at Christmas we would get a package, and you know, it's like it was.
I had a soft spot. My dad and I enjoyed Goofy. You know. And remember the sports Goofy clamshell? You know, there was like 3 or 4 of them, I think it was, you know. And those were freaking hysterical. You know what I mean? And that was a clamshell. That was only like a 45, 55 minute VHS tape
Goofy
that you got.
At one time was that everyman character.
Yes, he was. Very much so.
On our side, we would get the VCR tapes, like you said, Goofy on sports. Goofy at the movies.
Goofy, Mickey, and Donald camping.
Right.
You know, where the RVs coming around the car and whatever it was.
Yeah, that was one thing Disney did with the tapes was just collections of, we'll just, you know,
throw something here, throw something there.
Throw something at it. Yeah. So, yeah, it was
the golden era.
It was.
It was a golden era. And the second golden era was definitely the 2000s because it was the star pumping machine. You know what I mean? It became that with the...
I mean, the thing is, Disney has always had tendrils within Hollywood with studios like Miramax and things like that. But I think as time has gone on, and within the 2000s, Disney can be a real studio. Drop the G movies. Yeah. So it's such an evolution when you think about those movies that were just so saccharinely sweet compared to what they're doing now. And the thing is, they always made these movies, they just hid behind different monikers.
And, you know, they got slammed in the 60s for the live-action films because they were sticking to that melodic, or that method that they were doing of the saccharine sweet. And they were getting slammed in the 60s and then even into the 70s where, you know, the civil rights was going on and all the, you know, all these other things that were, you know, the backdrop to these time frames. And they weren't making the revenue stream that they once were, and part of it was they didn't know if they should attack it or stick with what they had made money on.
Yeah, like when you're talking about the 70s, just as an example, in the theater you'd have whatever G-rated offering Disney would have, and then you
next to Serpico
or next to Death Wish.
And
Death Wish was sadly the world that was outside, because New York, for all intents and purposes, it being the clean, shiny mecca it is now, is very recent. I mean, Times Square was a hive of villainy and evil.
That's very true.
I mean, that's where your
only culture section at that point was Broadway. That was your culture center. Yes. It wasn't like, you know, Times Square right now, or is today.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, there was no CBS This Morning or whatever broadcasting live right down the street or whatever. That's all within.
Yeah,
you said within the last
like
25
Midnight
years.
Cowboy. I mean, the Dirty Harry movies are San Francisco, but yet that's another thing. Where, I mean, and granted, it's sensationalized.
Of course it is.
But anyway.
But it was art imitating life.
Right, but we're getting away from that. But people were gravitating more towards those movies than the Disney movies.
Well, and that's, I think that's where Disney was smart, because they had that vacuum in the 70s and in the 60s.
But people didn't take kids to movies like they do.
And you're right.
Now.
But I think what saved, or what kept them moving along, was the smart that we're going to embrace the home video.
Yes.
And we're going to put all these things out there.
Yes.
And, you know, and it's going to, you know, try to, because you got to remember when, oh God, as you know, in 82, 83, they were talking about breaking Disney up.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? That was a thing, and it was like, okay, well, this conglomerate's going to take the theme park, and this conglomerate's going to take the studio, and this conglomerate's going to take the, you know, and I have to give credit to Roy E. Disney. he fought that tooth and
Yes,
nail. He
yes.
fought it tooth and nail, and he kept it moving somehow, some way, until somebody who came along and solidified, which was Eisner, and Eisner's not given enough.
No, he's not.
He's not.
He's
really
vilified
for no
honestly.
reason.
Right.
But for us, you and I,
he was
our Walt.
Yeah.
I mean, he was there on, you know,
at the beginning of every movie. He would do an intro just like Walt did. He embraced the Disney way of doing things,
which was, you know, I remember being a kid watching A Wonderful World, or maybe even wasn't. Maybe it was just an hour and a half special presentation when Epcot opened.
Yes.
Do you remember that when we were kids? When
Yes.
you know, that was a big deal, man. And all you wanted to do, and you knew it. I didn't know it, but I mean, my parents probably knew it. It's like, oh my God, they're watching a 2-hour commercial for Epcot Center.
Yeah.
And I must have drove my parents crazy.
Oh, but Walt did the same thing. You can watch the old.
Oh yeah,
hey,
absolutely.
here's
Oh, Art
the map that I
Linklater,
made.
right? He was sitting there with Art Linklater, and it's like, well, Walt, what do you think? Well, nobody died, you know, whatever it was, you know.
But you know, he had the 3D topical map and showing, and hey, we just bought this swampland that we're digging up. I mean, it was probably once a month there was an update. Back in the day,
right? Yep. Well, you're just celebrating the 40th anniversary this year, or 45th anniversary was this year.
Yeah.
And then I remember probably 20 years ago, it was probably hosted by Betty White and Kermit the Frog and whatever else. It was like the 25th anniversary of Disney World, and that was another one. It was a 2-hour commercial essentially for, you know, Disney.
But it's ingrained into our moral being almost. Maybe it's just our generation. Or the ones before us probably skipped a couple generations, and it probably has that feeling now, but you didn't feel like it was a commercial.
No, you
at
didn't.
all.
No,
at
you
all.
didn't. All I wanted to do was go. You know, it wasn't like I wanted to go buy T-shirts. I just didn't care. I just wanted to see what was behind the mouse ears, what was behind, you know, the golf ball, what was, you know, what's going on. You know, I just wanted you. There was a sense of excitement. It was legitimate excitement.
We wanted to add a third dimension to what we've been seeing.
Absolutely, you're right about that. You're right about that. And I think our parents, because I only went once and I could barely remember it. But I'm saying, I don't think our parents really understood it. If that makes any sense.
No.
You know what I mean? I don't think so. Yeah. And so I've gone out of my way to take my kids, you know, as many times as I can.
Yeah, and we plan to do the
when
same.
you plan to do the same, you know, and your kids are getting to that right age to do it. And I can tell you the first time I went into Disney as a father, not as a kid, not as anything, but as a father, it's really, really awesome. Because your kids are so happy. You know what I mean? There's no arguments. There's no nothing. Because the great thing about it is, it's like, Dad, it's 10 o'clock. Can I get an ice cream? Yes, you can. Because we're here. Why? Well, you know what I mean? And
No.
And it's 10:30 in the morning. And you know what? Give me one too, Junior. What? You know what I mean? You know, so that there's something neat about it. There really is.
Well, anyway, this is just a small glimpse into some of our fandom of the Disney live-action movies. I'm sure the topic will come up again. Yes, our shared fandom. Probably shared by a lot of people in our generation. But anyway, thanks for watching. My name's Rob.
And I'm Chris.
Keep being rad and stay dorky. See you next time. Oh, hello. I didn't even see you there. Just catching up on some reading. I hope you enjoyed this episode of My Side of the Laundry Room Live. If you did enjoy it, if you like it, if you love it, if you need it, click the subscription button. It's that simple. Just click it and you will be updated via email whenever we post a new video. And if you like what you see here, please head over to mysideofthelaundryroom.wordpress.com. And guess what? You can subscribe there too. And you'll be hit up anytime via email whenever I do anything new, whenever I talk about the glorious 80s stuff that we love. Comic books, video games, movies, toys, cartoons, you name it, it's there. So please subscribe here and there. Keep being rad and stay dorky.